something that's very near and dear to me in my heart. We are broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch, and on YouTube as well. So welcome. And without any further ado, I'd like to have Carlos introduce our guest today. We're playing Read the Lips. There you go.
Yeah, that's what gets to me. Sorry about that. Well, hello, everyone. This is Carlos Ponce in Mexico City. And with me today is co-creator and co-producer of Dojo Live, Tulio Siragusa. Hi, Tulio, fellow teammate, co-host Mariel as well in one of our offices, Chihuahua offices, and our co-host in training, Laura Fimbes. Hello, guys. Okay, so today we're going to be speaking with Joel Friedlaender, the founder of Red Guava, which is a software company that builds Clinical, a scheduling platform for small healthcare providers. Now, Joel, to get your story started, could you please share a little bit about yourself as well as Red Guava and Clinical, please? Thank you. Welcome to the show, by the way.
Thank you very much. So I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and my background is in software development. And I started Red Guava about 8 or 9 years ago now as a software company. But ultimately, we just built Clinico, which, as you mentioned, is healthcare software like a ERP or practice management system for small healthcare clinics, and have been doing that solely now for the last 8 and a bit years.
Thank you so much, Joel. And okay, Mariel, your turn.
Hi, guys. Well, today, the topic for today's Dojo Live is going to be remote, flexible, and autonomous work. First of all, Joel, can you tell us why did you choose this topic? Like, do you think this is a trend? Will it continue?
Sure. I think mostly, maybe not through intention, but the way our company has come to be over the years, we are a fully remote company. Our team work completely autonomously. And I think that for the most part, a lot of businesses, I believe, are working in a way that was kind of designed for the industrial era and designed a long time ago for a different type of work. And maybe we haven't reevaluated enough the way that we're working and what's most effective for our businesses today. So I think it's an interesting topic to talk about, and for maybe companies to reevaluate some of their processes or ways they're working, and whether that context of how they work makes sense for what they're doing.
That's a very interesting topic, Joel. I've been sort of standing on a soapbox for over a decade, because I think part of the problem is not only are we stuck in sort of the assembly line era in terms of how we're structured at work, but our educational system is similarly the same way. It's assembly line, it's memorizing things. What are your thoughts as it relates to, what needs to happen and why?
Sure. I think that it'll be great if the education system could change in the direction of, the way we work now. Like you mentioned, kids will turn up at school and at least hear the bell rings. You need to be sitting at your desk by the time the bell finishes ringing. If you want to go to the toilet, you need to ask your teacher for permission and have a scheduled time to go to the toilet. All these kind of rules and things. It feels like we're teaching kids conformance and compliance, which was really useful when they wanted them working on an assembly line many years ago. Those kind of skills made sense. And now when what we need for them in the workforce is creativity and resourcefulness, that doesn't seem to be what we're really pushing for in the education system as it's designed. And I think that, it was designed and heavily influenced by industrial leaders a long time ago and hasn't changed enough since then. And I think that also leads through to the work environment as well.
So we see this in this sort of form of command and control structure that was necessary for that environment because it actually safeguarded people's lives, right? You have to follow a certain production process, or you could literally die if you didn't, right? So very important to do that. But in the creative space, it's all about the freedom to express. And what do you think companies can do to make a shift in moving in that direction to support employees, to support people to be able to bring their very best without feeling so constrained and having to fit into a box, for example? What do you think is necessary, and what have you seen in terms of examples where it works?
So I think that part of it is that maybe we underestimate what is creative work. I feel like if you go to a lot of people and you say, what's a creative job, they might say art or a musician. And maybe we underestimate that most work we're doing now is creative. I kind of think that if you're doing work where the amount of time it takes to get the job done is not so clearly defined. So if you're in an assembly line, you can process X number of widgets in this amount of time. And maybe if you work really fast, you can go 20% faster or something like this. But when you're working on a problem in a business where when the solution hits you, you're done, and there's no clearly defined time for that. Maybe it takes you 5 minutes because you have that epiphany moment right away, or maybe it takes you 2 hours, or potentially even you don't come up with that great solution at all because you didn't have the right stimulation or something that impacts it to get it done. That I would consider creative work. And I think that most jobs we're doing now, at least a significant portion of it, are creative jobs, but we don't think of them like that. People don't think of programming as a creative job. That sounds like it's mathematical or scientific, or maybe it's still, a bit mechanical, whereas I would certainly consider software programming a very creative endeavor. Marketing, maybe we already think that towards creativity. Business management, I would say creativity. All these roles that are creative roles, and I don't think we think of them in that way. And I think we've already learned, or we have ideas on what helps you be creative. If you're an artist, you know that you should be in a stimulating work environment. Maybe you put on some good music. Maybe you go and read some books that inspire you a little bit. So I think we have ideas on creative work and how to do it well, but then we kind of don't associate what we're doing in our jobs as creative work and then apply those principles.
That's interesting. Now, you mentioned software development. I know, for example, Agile was introduced as a way to help organize in such a way that didn't require everybody to be in an assembly line type of format. Unfortunately, it's kind of been bastardized to some degree by a lot of companies. But do you think we need something like that to enable the same in the workplace, to be able to shift the mindset from just being productivity and assembly and output driven to actually changing this mindset to the creative work and defining what creative works are? How would that work, in your opinion?
I think that if we took lessons from the Agile Manifesto, which is a set of principles on how to work, that would be fantastic. I think that there's really good things in the Agile Manifesto and the ideas around Agile work. I think if we went further and you start to look at some of the ways to implement it, like Scrum, for example, they've got their challenges and they've got their problems, and I think it becomes a little bit too prescribed. Now, in some situations, and maybe in bigger organizations where they have trouble to go all in on flexibility from where they are at the moment, maybe a system like Scrum or Kanban or one of these prescribed ways to achieve those results is a good starting point. But I think fundamentally, there's like a higher level attitude change that's required that a lot of companies struggle to do. And maybe that also comes back to the fact that a lot of people kind of don't trust their team to want to do their work. So they're in a position where they feel like they need to control them or they need to force them to get their jobs done. And that also is one of the creators of these bad processes and bad habits in big companies. When you think you need to control people and you think you need to force them or trick them to get them to get their work done, you're going to start setting up processes and ways of working that, are probably inhibitive to creative work.
Well, there's also something worse that happens. A lot of companies have figured out how to basically pay off the employees and get away with these activities by giving all kinds of perks, right? And people like, I have all these perks, free lunch and foosball table, but in reality, what people really want is the freedom to express themselves on their own terms. I have one more comment around this manifesto, but before I do that, I think Laura has a question. I want to pass it to her to ask you this question, and we'll get back to some of the comments you made about Agile.
Okay, so Joel, having a team completely remote along all the globe, how do you manage to maintain your culture in Red Guava, and how do you pass it on to new joiners?
So it's a tough one to answer because I wouldn't say I'm like myself personally is the holder of culture in our company. Obviously, it's a team thing. I think that it developed as we were a small team in the beginning, and as the team, started to grow, the culture developed at that point. And as we add people now to it, perhaps it's already quite strong. So if we've got 10 people in the team and we add one more person to the team, I think that they will absorb the culture that already exists there. So I think that, as long as your culture is strong and as long as everyone in the team, feels a part of it and feels that, I think that just can kind of happen organically. The only thing I'd say specifically for a remote team is one of the keys for us has been having some in-person meetups. Makes a big difference. And certainly with new people that join the company, there's a distinct difference of how they are in the company before and after they've been to their first meetup. So I think when people first join the team, they don't quite get how we operate or the people in it or the real feeling of the business. And then we'll have a meetup where we'll hang out for a week or two. And we'll do it, we'll all stay in one location. People will be having breakfast, lunch, dinner together, playing games, having a drink, whatever it might be. And I think it's the things we do that aren't work that happen during these meetups that allow people to really get it. And then, you reap that benefit for the next 6 months or a year after a meetup where those people that hadn't been one to a meetup before are a lot more comfortable in the company after they've been to one.
Okay.
I understand Maria has a question for you. So please, Maria.
Sure, thanks. Well, myself, I work with a development team. Part of my team is not here, but I know that Joel's team is a really spread out team. It's not just United States or Australia and in another country. There are several countries. Joel, what is the biggest challenge of being a team like this? Remote, flexible, autonomous.
Sure. Honestly, it's a hard one to answer because I feel like it just works so well. I think that if you weren't a company that's really built for remote, see our first hire, the first person that joined our team was in Poland and I'm based in Melbourne. So straight away we were set up for remote work and to operate in this way. I think companies that sort of dip their toe in the water can struggle with it. If you're a company that has an office and then you decide to have one remote person, it's probably going to be a rough ride for them because the company's not built for remote. There's a lot of things that are happening that are not happening in, say, a chat channel. There's meetings going on they're missing out on, or other things that occur in the office. And even a lot of the social chatter that will be happening in the office, they'll be missing out on being a remote worker. So I think that if you're not entirely remote or at least built with remote first, that can be hard. And I think also for companies that decide, well, we're going to let people work from home 1 day a week or something like this, they feel like they're sampling or trying out remote, but I feel like it's a bit built, set up to fail if they're not all in with it. So those situations, I can see people would struggle. But for us, honestly, I just feel like I don't understand how people work in a normal office environment. Remote works so well for us.
Joel, I have a question, and this is kind of ties into Mariel's point and also to Laura's point. But I would like to reword it. When I hear the term remote work, especially nowadays in this day and age, what is called the field of knowledge workers or digital work or knowledge work, everything can be done very seamlessly through the usual tools like the internet or the platforms or what have you. In that sense, I can personally understand that a company can function very seamlessly, especially a distributed company or a virtual company like Red Guava. But if I were to ask you in the what would be not the challenges, because you might have worked very seamlessly, very nicely, as you mentioned, so no problems to report. But if I were to ask you, what is the common thread that binds it all together so as to function seamlessly? What would it be, especially in the cultural part of the equation? Because you might have someone in Australia and then in Poland and in Singapore or in Mexico, whatever. So you have people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different languages, different points of view. Take India, for example. You might have someone working in India that needs to observe the holiday that they observe, whatchamacallit? Can't remember the name, but they have a special holiday or a few days, they don't work at all. The same here in Mexico, you have the Holy Week or the Easter and whatever. So you have all these cultural elements that might make it a little bit difficult. So what is the common thread that binds it all together and makes it work in a remote company like yours?
Sure. I think a large part is the sort of quality of the team you can put together. So if I'm hiring in Melbourne and I want to hire a software developer, at the time I post this job, we have certain technologies and languages we use. Developers are in great demand in Melbourne, in Australia. So the amount of people that will see my job ad, be looking for work at the time that I'm hiring, have the skills I need. Maybe I get 10 people apply for this job, that I can choose from, and I'm picking from 10. And a lot of companies, say like, oh, we only hire the best, but they hire the best from a very small set of people that actually apply to their business when they're hiring. We just went through a hiring process right now. We had 3 jobs up for offer, and I had just over 5,000 people apply for these 3 jobs we were just hiring for. Which, there's no chance I get anywhere near it if we're hiring just locally within Melbourne. And that gives us a huge pool of people to choose from. And in the end, we're able to pick some amazing people to join the team. These people are passionate about what they do, great skill set. They're good, nice people with good integrity. And I think that it's a big part of it. When you bring people into the team that are actually just good people and they love what they do and they're interested in their work and they have great skill set, and they, you mentioned diversity, they bring in a new set of ideas and thoughts to the team that perhaps we don't have already in there. It makes a huge difference. You're bringing in these really motivated people and they're going to work well. They're probably going to work well in an office. They're going to work well in a remote environment. They're going to work well wherever you can put these people. So I think that helps a lot to make it work.
So Joel, would you say that as long as the mission and the intentionality, if you're hiring for impact or for purpose, that some of the cultural differences that may exist across different parts of the world just kind of go away because you inherently respect each other's differences, but you're so focused on the purpose, on the impact you want to make, that all those things don't really matter. Is that the message I'm getting, that companies?
I don't know that I'd say they don't matter as much as they're beneficial. I think that all those different attributes and all those different ideas and different backgrounds and things makes for stimulating conversation, different thought process when we're making decisions, different ideas. I can't remember where I heard it, but I remember someone that had said, stop looking for culture fit when you're hiring and look for culture add. Look for someone that's bringing something new to your team. And I really took that to heart and thought about it a lot. And I think it, again, is a big part of our team, is that we're bringing in these diverse people into the business, and it makes the business so much stronger. And just coming back to Carlos' point as well quickly about holidays and things like that, I think that when you're set up to work remote, you're also set up to work asynchronously. So you're not having all these meetings. You don't need to be on at the same time. You're leaving messages for each other that they respond to at their discretion. And whether you're on at the same time or not becomes a lot less relevant. And it's probably rare that you're working on super urgent things that must have an answer immediately. And I think particularly when you start working asynchronously, you realize how rare it is that things actually become urgent for an answer right away. Maybe you don't need to go tap someone on the shoulder in the office and interrupt what they're doing to get that answer to the question you had and potentially break their thought process and what they're doing. Maybe you can just send a message and wait for a response when it's convenient from them.
I love the idea of being culturally expansive instead of hiring for fit. This I want to get your opinion on this. So we've seen from the Industrial Revolution or the assembly line model, there was a lot of dependency on processes and following the rules, right? Now we live in an age where there's a lot of encouragement about independence, be yourself, be true to yourself. However, what I'm hearing though, and this lines back to the manifesto comment that you made earlier, there's a few of us, Nearso, for example, who co-founded this movement we call Radical, and actually developed the Radical Interdependence Manifesto, similar to the Agile Manifesto, which is about the fact that, yes, independence is important, but when you're working as a team, you actually have to start developing some interdependence on each other, which has to be rooted on mutual respect and treating each other as adults. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think a lot of companies lack this, and it's an opportunity for them to figure out a way to still let people be independent, but encourage interdependence? How do we get there?
I think part of it is one of the parts to the structure in our company is that there isn't much structure. So we don't have any hierarchy. We don't have any managers. And I think that in a lot of businesses where you do have management levels, you also introduce competition between people within the company. If you're in a development team and there's a developer lead role coming up soon, and you know one person in that team's going to get it, you are inherently in competition with each other to get that promotion, to earn more money, to, you know, follow your career path. And pitting people against each other within the same team seems like a bad idea to me. And I think that one of the sort of side benefits of removing the hierarchy is allowing people to work together without it negatively impacting their career path, which makes sense and sounds obvious, but we set up for that kind of a battle in a lot of companies. And I think that when, you know, not only are you not competing with each other, but when you're also truly accountable for the work you're doing, then, you know, that's what becomes the focus. It's not about any side things. It's not about your KPI. It's not about, you know, impressing your manager. You actually just care about getting the work done. And then whether it's you doing it, whether you're working with someone else, whatever it takes, you're just all on the same page and all trying to get something done together. So I think that would naturally create that, you know, I can't remember the word you used to describe it, but naturally create the situation where people are working together or working independently, just, you know, naturally and organically.
I love that, because I have to tell you, I spent 28 years of my 30-year career working in that traditional hierarchy model. And often enough, you open up to someone because you want to just be transparent, or you want to be vulnerable, and it gets used against you sometimes, right? Because someone's trying to impress their boss, and it really creates a highly untrusting environment. Whereas in the past 2 years with Nearsoft, we don't have any bosses to impress. And as a result, we can just be honest and forward with each other and be vulnerable. And that creates a model where you actually really trust one another, because there's no one you're trying to impress. So, you know, why do companies, it seems like such a simple thing, right? Like, you want more trust amongst your team. You want to create more accountable teams, remove the need to impress the boss. Why do you think companies struggle with this? It seems like some companies just don't get it.
I think it comes back to, like, people just set up their company in a way that other companies have been set up. Or if you're a software company, maybe you look at how Google's operating and think Google's operating, they've had great success, we should do what Google does. And you kind of forget that your business has its own context. You have your own product or services that you're developing. You have your own customer base that's different. Your team is different. Your goals as a business can be different. So there's all these different parts of the context of your business that vary. And that's going to, or should, impact how you decide to work in a company. And I think a lot of times people don't consider that, and they just set up a situation like they've worked in before, or like they see other companies. So they think that if we're going to have a team of people, they must have a manager. Maybe they don't even consider what for. The way we kind of think about it in our company is we're just not trying to solve problems we don't have. And when we do have a problem, we want to solve it with what we think is the best way for us to solve it. So right now, I can't think of any problems we have in our company that I feel like a manager is the solution to. So we're not going to hire or create a management role. Perhaps that'll change in future. I don't know. But at the moment, we don't have it, because there hasn't been a need or a problem that feels like that's the solution to it. And maybe people don't always wait for that. They're not always waiting for a problem they're trying to solve and then looking for the most appropriate solution to it. Maybe they fall back on other ways that, you know, other companies work.
That's great. We're almost 400 people and we still don't have that problem. So I guarantee if you create a self-managed environment, you won't need any managers.
That is excellent to hear, because we're now 39 and I wonder if the day will come. I'm happy to hear that it can be past 400.
Absolutely. And we actually know companies that are even bigger than that are doing it too. Marielle, I think you have a question.
Yeah, actually thinking about that, whether we believe it or not, sometimes it's hard to get the right people with the right mindset. In my personal experience, I have known people who's not comfortable working in an environment like that, you know, without a boss. So Joel, thinking about that, how do you go about finding the right people with the right mindset for your company? Like, do you have a dedicated team working on this, or like the whole team works on this?
Sure. So I don't even know if people are like set up to work well in an environment like that, or just they haven't done it in the past, so they don't know how to, but they could with some support and assistance. That would probably be a hard thing to work out with someone. As far as how we do with the hiring process, Previously and early on, I would just do it. But like in the recent one with more than 5,000 people applying, it was impossible that I would go through and do all of that on my own. So when we did it, we just had anyone in the team could jump in and help out. We had an application tracking system that all the applications came into, and people in the team, just when they wanted to, would go in and have a look and review and leave feedback on applications, and we would filter them down. Once we got down, we ended up getting from the 5,000 down to 110 that we'd shortlisted out of that from the applications. And I did video interviews with all of those people. Well, in the end, I think it was 102 interviews that I did for that part of it. And that's just a quick 5-minute chat that I have with people. Just trying to work out a lot, which is, are they passionate about what they do? Do they seem like a nice person? And then, if they go through that, we'll do some sort of skills test afterwards. So I think that those quick chats is a part of it, trying to get a quick feel for it. And then once we're down to the last few, other people in the team will help out and do some, video calls and chats with these people also to give feedback. And by then, hopefully, we've got someone that's, pretty enthusiastic and we think can work in our company.
Marielle made a really interesting point, and I want to ask you if you agree with this or not, but I guess you also need to make sure that who you're hiring are going to be acting responsible as adults. People that actually take serious what they do and make themselves accountable for themselves. They don't need to have their hands held.
Yep.
And we often say, we hire adults because you have to be an adult in an environment like this because no one's going to tell you what to do. And interestingly enough, we did have an experience this year where we hired someone 2 months later. They were having a nervous breakdown because they wanted to be told what to do. And so I think what's sad is that the environment that this industrial mindset has created is a codependent environment where some people literally don't know how to break free.
Yep.
And some might need training on actually how to be a self-accountable and active adults in the workplace in order to operate in this environment. Have you had any experience like that?
Yeah, I think it's crazily true that we have people join our team and you think that the environment we work in would be easy and freeing and feel good. And it takes people months to really come to terms with the way we're working, and sometimes longer than just a few months. I think when you've worked in a normal business for so long, it's very hard to move into a thing where you really have autonomy, where you're really empowered to make decisions. And even when someone's not necessarily evaluating you. So we don't do any performance reviews in our company. I personally am the only thing that's close to a manager in our business, being the founder, owner of the company. But I'm not doing performance evaluations. I'm not reviewing people. I'm not monitoring and checking on them. And that can be weird for people. Not having someone come in and check and say, hey, you're doing a good job, from a management level can be disconcerting, and they start to wonder, are they? So often I do find that, 3 to 6 months after someone started and I catch up with them and have a bit of a chat, it's one of the things that might come up is they're just not sure if people are happy with their work or how they're doing, because they've kind of been trained to receive this constant praise or negative feedback ongoingly, and that's how they know they're doing a good job, rather than any innate satisfaction of the work they're doing that would come from themselves.
I think we've all experienced that on this video chat right here in our initial days with Nearsoft. Hey, listen, we're up on time. Unless someone has any additional question, I want to just thank you for being our guest. Anybody else have any additional questions for Joel?
I don't.
Great. Well, thanks for being our guest. Really appreciate it. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with anyone who's sitting on the fence about making this kind of change in their organization? Any words of wisdom you'd like to share with them as we part ways today?
Sure. I just believe that remote work is definitely coming in a big way. And if companies aren't looking at doing remote work yet, chances are they will be in the near future. I think there's so many advantages to it that people should really start to consider it if they're not already.
Joel, thank you for being with us. And Carlos, who do we got coming up next week? Carlos is always challenging us to see if we can read his lips.
I am practicing my sign language.
Except there's no sign.
You need to learn how to read my mouth. So anyway, cool. Okay, so next week, for those viewers out there who are watching, next week is going to be our last episode of the year. We're going away on vacation or whatever you want to call it, but we're just going away. But next week we're going to have Janice Spring. I hope I got that right. Dennis Spreen. He is one of the founders of a company called Fulfilly. We're going to be speaking about the learnings from building an agency business development platform on how to run a better digital agency business. So if you are a digital agency, a digital marketing agency, or into it, then this is a conversation you will not want to miss. It's happening next week right here on Dojo Live, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific. And that's all I have for today. The only thing left for me is simply thank Joel for having agreed to be here with us today. I don't know what time it is over there, Joel, but I got to hand it to you. You managed the time difference very nicely. So thank you for having been with us today right here on Dojo Live.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time, folks.